chiropractic friends, delighted to have you with us today this afternoon. I'm Dr. Sherry McAllister, the Executive Vice President for the Foundation for Chiropractic Progress. We're delighted to have ChiroSecure constantly support the foundation, and one of these being today's webinar series. We always like to bring in the experts, and today is absolutely no exception to that rule. Today we have with us Mr. Shawn Steel. He's practiced since 1978. Creating a whole new field of law by representing alternative medicine doctors. Mr. Steel developed a very boutique area of law, defending doctors and representing their patients in personal injury matters. This particular Facebook Live is going to help you understand a lot about the motor vehicle accidents and help your patients be successful in the cases when they do get injured. With no further ado, I thank all of you for joining us, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Shawn Steel.
Thank you, Dr. Sherry. This is exciting. I'm proud to be affiliated working with the foundation. I come from a three-generation chiropractic family, all females, Cleveland and Palmer. I teach at Palmer presently, Palmer West. I teach at Southern California University. So I'm proud of my chiropractic background, and I'm actually fluent in the language. I tell attorneys that I'm a chiropractic personal injury attorney and have no idea what that means. But it's if you have a good attorney to work with, he should appreciate and understand the history and the philosophy of chiropractic. Today, we're talking about, in just a few minutes, how to build a powerful PI case, brick by brick. So we're going to go through this relatively quickly, but it's something that we need to pay attention to because it's something that's absolutely crucial to most chiropractic businesses and practices throughout the country for a good reason. A majority of people in a serious motor vehicle accident get care by a chiropractor. And a lot of attorneys don't even recognize that, but insurance companies certainly understand that. So let's start off with the presentation because we got a lot of information here, but not much time. First, let's settle on the question, what do we do with what we call the low impact case? Actually, the super low impact case. We call it MIST, minor impact soft tissue. Insurance companies started by Allstate and State Farm have been gunning for that a long time. And insurance companies are merciless when they look at that kind of a case. They put it in the we will not pay under any circumstance. Now, consequently, some chiropractors really want to help their patients. The patients really get hurt. They don't know what to do. They take care of the patient. Then after 6 months of grinding and working and putting out a report, they don't get paid for it. And they wonder why. Well, it's what we call a high-risk case. Sometimes you will get paid for it. Sometimes the insurance company will do the right thing. But our real concern is, what do we do when you don't get paid for it and an attorney doesn't want to take it to court and then the patient owes you a bunch of money? Solve that problem easily. Don't get involved in a lien case. Most attorneys won't touch these cases. You can see right on the screen that, if it's really minor, it's truly a scratch on the bumper. So if it's that way and the patient comes into your clinic and they wanting help, help them. But they're called a cash patient, not a lien case. And cash patients are willing, if they're hurt, they're willing to pay for the doctor. You can give them a special arrangement if you need to, but we call those always cash. Let's look at the other kind of accident that we see a lot of the time, and that's what we call the moderate to severe accident case. So there's 5 steps that I've presented today that we'll discuss. You'll be able to access this video again and again, but step 1 is, in America, we have an adversarial system. The bad guy, the one that causes the accident, has to pay through his insurance company. So you need to find out your patient is innocent, and that's just how it generally works. The absolute gold star, the foundation of finding out if you have a solid, clean case or not, without you becoming a professional investigator, is real simple. You get the police report. In the police report, you'll find that in a vast majority of cases that involve moderate to serious injuries. And you get the police report, lots of ways to get it, a lot of creative ways, but you don't have the time. You should always get the police report from your attorney. And attorneys that are pro-chiropractic will be happy to cooperate with you. They'll be happy to go out of their way to give you that information. I'd be suspicious of any attorney that holds your lien, that says they're going to pay you later on, if he refuses to give you the police report. I think that's very suspicious. So get the police report. You don't spend a lot of time studying it. Usually it's, I say you have 1 minute to look at a police report. They'll tell you who's right and who's wrong. And that's basically your insurance. Secondly, we got to know how severe was the accident. How much crush damage was there? Of course, this is a very dramatic presentation, but you have plenty of patients that have these kind of traumas. Well, you need to get the pictures. You need to know what the patient went through. And nowadays, all of our patients have pictures just about. They have pictures that they take at the scene. They have pictures they have at the body shop. Download every one of those and put it in your chart. And the point is, this gives you another view, not the only view, but another perception about how serious the damage was and how your patient experienced the trauma. And clearly, in this world, juries respond to something that's visual, that's tangible, and it becomes much more believable. Now, sometimes pictures are deceptive, but you got to know what the insurance company is going to see, and then work with that with your attorney. If it doesn't look very impressive, maybe there's some undercarriage damage, but that your attorney can work with you through that. But always get the pictures, because let me tell you, the judge sees it, the jury sees it, the experts see it, the attorney see it, the adjuster sees it, everybody sees the pictures. And it used to be the chiropractors never saw the pictures of the car. Those days are over, but you've got to make sure you get those pictures, get them from your patients and get them from the lawyer. Again, watch out for that, what we call the missed case, minor impact soft tissue. These are cases that, again, they're pretty self-observant. And the nice thing is you don't have to guess what the patient's car looks like or how small it is. It's in the parking lot. Go outside with the patient, have a look at it. And the patient will pretty much give you an idea if there's some hidden damage that's not visible to the eye. And they'll probably agree with you, well, it wasn't much of an accident, but my neck isn't right. Take care of that patient. It's a cash patient. Now, here's where the doctor becomes the doctor. You're the primary care. You have the license responsible for the total care of the patient. So no matter what the conditions are that's caused by the trauma, it's your responsibility to make sure that the patient gets care for all systems, including areas outside of your specialty. You're the generalist here. So we need to get a strong diagnosis. This is where you become the center stage. I consider the chiropractor the quarterback of PI, not the medical doctors, not the physical therapist, not the orthopedist. It is the chiropractor that's in charge of the case, and an orthopedist is his lieutenant, because there's going to be multiple problems with that patient. Trauma cases are just overwhelmingly other problems that impact the patient. Sometimes they're obvious at the first visit. Many times they're latent. But look at the diagnosis, and here are some of the issues that I look for, because this is a big subject. We talk about this particular issue for hours. Be careful how you diagnose. There's some trigger words that we got to avoid. We no longer use language like cervical or lumbago, because that implies the patient didn't get hurt. And if the patient didn't get hurt, how do you justify 30 visits? So language is terribly important, because insurance companies get most of their information and most of their analysis from artificial intelligence. So they look at these words that you put in your reports, they look at your codes, and if you code what makes it sound like a small case, it cannot itself justify serious care. So if you diagnose the case where the injury seems small, you can maybe justify 12 visits. Be careful, because many times this is a big trap the chiropractors can fall into just by a poor diagnosis, something that we may have been successful 20 years ago, but is not relevant today. These are just a few ideas that we have, and we're not going to spend a lot of time in this slide, but you have it available. There's pain codes. The AMA discovered pain about 15 years ago, and these are powerful codes. And frankly, if you're treating a patient for more than 20 visits and you don't have a G8911, I'm wondering did you just not know about the code, or is the patient that seriously injured? Because 20 visits is a lot of work, a lot of your time, and the insurance companies have to pay for that. But if you don't tell them it's a G8911, you're basically communicating, the patient really wasn't hurt. And that's when we're shooting ourselves in the foot. Or look at the headache pain. Big area. Juries are very interested about that. And then you have probably close to 50 separate headache trauma codes. I've given you a few: the cluster, daily persistent, primary stabbing, the migraines, and of course the acute post-traumatic. These are very big codes, and many of your patients have headaches. It's not maybe the number one thing that bothers them, but it may be persistent, especially if it's over 2 weeks. Please diagnose headaches. Are terribly important because it really goes to showing that there's multiple issues that the patient's suffering through. But there's more. We have neck pain. That is something that, especially with the new ICD-10 codes, are much more specific. So we always start with step one. That's what we call a trauma code, like fascial neck muscle strain. And then what else is going on? We got to drill down and be specific. Is it kyphosis? Is it radiculopathy? These are issues that will help justify more extensive care, it justifies your bill, and the likelihood of you getting paid increases dramatically. Look, these are the complicating issues. There's many, many more. Again, we don't have a lot of time today, but these are some that we can't overlook. I've had spectacular pre-existing scoliosis issues. Children, when they were children, they had surgery and rods put down their back, and these people are lifetime time bombs when it comes to trauma. You'll have, of course, for more mature citizens, you'll have cervical disc degeneration. We got to talk about that. We don't hide from complicating factors. They actually justify more care. Patient is suffering diabetes, or they had surgery recently, or they're older. All of these justify more care. We got to put it in, use the complicating factors, put that in your diagnostic codes, and it will justify more aggressive care. Now, one of my favorite areas, and I call this, I'll be blunt about it, we call this the money line, the prognosis. Surprisingly, it's what doesn't heal is where the value of PI cases come from. So if you're a wonderful chiropractor and you get a lot of great results with your patient, basically at the end of care, no matter how big the trauma was, the patient's asymptomatic, pre-existing status, excellent prognosis, it's a small case. It's unbelievable. It sounds counterintuitive. If the patient is a mature person, they've had a moderate to serious collision, most of the time, in my experience, they suffer for years, long after they've seen the chiropractor. The best we can do, a majority of the time, is to get the patient on their feet, reduce their pain levels from 8 out of 10, 7 out of 10, and get them down to a 2 out of 10. But under the law, with all the managed care and Obamacare and insurance company changes, we don't get to treat patients for years like we used to. Chiropractors get a few months, maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 months to treat a patient if you expect to get paid. Otherwise, the longer you treat, if you get up to months 10, 11, 12, 15 months, insurance companies don't like to pay that. Juries get uncomfortable with that as well. So you got to be careful. It becomes a riskier situation. And so you got to be get the patient a maximum chiropractic improvement, release them, put in your report that the patient very likely will have to return for care occasionally, especially if there's flare-ups. But prognosis is what I call the money line. And I give an example. Here, when you talk about a prognosis, many of the factors that you've included as a diagnosis, for example, indigestion, a real diagnosis, a lot of patients get that. It's resolved generally, or abnormality of gait. If the issue is resolved, if it's much better, if it's fully functioning, don't say good or great, say resolved. But let me give you some other areas. Let's say there's continuing problems with the right wrist pain. Well, you can have a discussion about it and give me a percentage of resolution, 80% resolved, or continued headaches and migraines, 50% resolved and still under the care of a neurologist, or continued neck pain. And again, percentages of resolutions are very, very valuable. It puts pressure on the insurance company to settle the case. The worst thing that they fear is that the patient's going to come back to get more care or see a specialist. The bills are going to get much, much higher. They're going to owe more money, and insurance companies hate to be able to have to pay more money. So you give an honest prognosis, explain what is resolved and what isn't resolved. What isn't resolved is where the insurance companies always have to pay more, because that implies future care. All right. Now, one of my favorite areas, and this is a very sophisticated, very big area. There's more and more attention being brought to it. I argue that every single chiropractic patient no matter what, is disabled if they have to get chiropractic care after a personal injury accident. Their life has changed. Something is upset. Something is different. And so there's 3 areas of disabilities that we can focus on, but 2 should be everyday matters for sure in disability. So we'll start off with 1, loss of earnings. Very clearly a big area when it comes to personal injury. Most states will give full compensation beyond medical bills, beyond pain and suffering for a person's loss of earnings. So if the person has a long-time job, a good attendance record, but he loses a month, he could be out thousands of dollars. Oh, sure, he has a sick leave. He could take vacation leave off. But even so, the jury still has to compensate the person that lost his benefits because he could have taken the vacation time, with his family later on. So loss of earnings is something that it's got to be put in your report. And what you put in your report is something very, very simple. Patient could not work from October 1st to October 20th. Boom. You don't explain why they couldn't work or it was too painful. You don't give me the kind of work they did. You certainly don't give me how much money they lost. That's not your concern. Your concern is exactly how much the patient's time lost, and the lawyer is supposed to do the rest. Here's an example. This is a school district in California, and the teacher lost 4 days of work. And I got this from the school district, and the school district said, well, the patient makes $491.65 a day. That's about $2,000. I presented this to the insurance company, and they said, well, we would pay for it, but your chiropractor didn't say that they lost 4 days. The chiropractor did not verify the patient's loss of earnings. I called the chiropractor. He apologized. He said, I'm sorry. It's an oversight. And he produced for me a disability slip that he gave the patient so he could take the time off. With that disability slip and a paragraph on his letterhead, he simply stated the patient couldn't work for 4 days, and here's the proof. I got another $2,000 on top of the PI case. Now, by the way, what's good about that $2,000 that may not have come through, that made sure that the chiropractor's bill is paid 100%. My philosophy is that if you do the work and you're waiting to get paid, you should get paid 100%. And most of the time, it's our responsibility as doctors to see that the documentation is right, see that it's smart, see that the treatment plan and the management of the case is done properly, and you'll get paid. So what I like about loss of earnings is it gets you good money right on top of the case. But there's another form of what we call disability, and that's the ADL, Activities of Daily Living. And this will pretty much get us to the end of our program here. It's a real rushed approach, and we can be reached at ShawnSteel.com, where I have all these forms, lots of information for doctors of chiropractic, made for doctors of chiropractic at the ShawnSteel.com when it comes to personal injury. Don't ask me about immigration, contract law, criminal law. I'm a personal injury specialist, and I serve the chiropractic community. Let's finally finish with what I call the activities of daily living. This is beautiful because all of your patients discuss it with you. Well, let's document it. Use an ADL form. I've got a whole bunch of them on my site. I'm sure you have yourself, activities of daily living chart. But rather than writing a long story about all the things a patient couldn't do or how their life was disrupted, I just boil it down to 3. I would have the patient fill out an ADL for their monthly review, where you give them a limited evaluation, have them fill it out, and you'll pretty much see what the big issues are. And so here's a model I've given you. Give me 3. You don't need to give me a 20, but be specific about it. Give me some metrics. So if the patient's activity that bothered her the most is getting dressed, and the time unable to perform the activity without pain was 4 weeks, and the degree of disability for her was, she says, 5 out of 10, well, I got a good argument here. That means she had an intense, acute period time of pain, and she needs to be compensated for that on top of the bills and the general damages. And then she also reports that driving was a hassle to getting in and out of the car to pick up her kids. 2 weeks of that, and then walking. Like everybody needs to walk, and she liked to walk as part of her exercise. She had problems to walk normally for 3 weeks, and then another 2 months of problems. So all of that is compensatable. And the beauty is that we don't know precisely what a jury will pay for, but it gives a jury a good excuse to give more money. And it's something that the insurance companies just don't like. So it's with these tools that we can build a good personal injury case. This only covers just a few of the basic issues that we're concerned about, but I think this will give you the 5-point program that you can build from. Got any questions, please contact us, and it's a great pleasure being with you folks today. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Shawn. Your information is always outstanding, and I think each and every one of us in practice can always use these tips to build on how we're formulating our motor vehicle accidents. So I'm very grateful that you're able to join the Foundation for Chiropractic Progress. Don't miss us again next week. That's right, Tuesday, August 21st. We're going to have Roberto Monaco back again. We'd love to have you join us on the ChiroSecure Facebook Live. I also want to invite you, if you're in Florida, remember this week is Florida Chiropractic Association, the National. It's the largest seminar convention, or one of the largest in chiropractic. And if you want to learn a plethora of information, join us. I'm going to be doing a lecture there. We've got a wonderful opportunity to celebrate because the foundation will be doing a birthday celebration. We'll have some prizes that you won't want to miss out on. It's 123 years of success in the chiropractic profession. We'll be celebrating that. Our date of our birthday is September 18th, as you all know, and the foundation will be having a cake cutting on Saturday if you happen to be in Orlando, but also look for our billboards. We're really excited about what we've got going on. So thanks for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you next month on ChiroSecure's Facebook Live.